I have lived alone since I was 18 in Bombay, Pune, Delhi through heartbreaks, burnout, and nights that felt a bit too quiet. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Every girl should live alone at least once in their life. Not because it's easy, but because it changes you in ways nothing else can. You can learn self-love through books, through self-help books, but independence, that you learn when you're alone in a brand new city trying to figure out life. The real glow-up doesn't start with skincare or fashion. It starts when you stop depending on anyone else for comfort. Because a woman who can live alone can survive anything. When I look back, every version of me, from the 10-year-old at boarding school to the 25-year-old living in a 2 BHK, was learning the same lesson in different ways. That no matter how many people love you, you have to know how to stand on your own. I still remember my first night in Bombay. It was raining, the fan was making this weird noise, and I didn't even know where the nearest grocery store was. And Blinkit and Zepto didn't really exist back in the day. And I know it sounds dramatic now, but that's when adulthood really started for me. Not when I got my first job or when I graduated, but when I realized that no one's coming to fix things for me anymore. That's the first thing living alone teaches you: self-trust. And once you have that, everything else, confidence, peace, glow, all just follows. So here's me telling you why it's important for girls to leave home at least once in their life. Lesson 1, learning how to rely on yourself. The first thing you learn when you live alone is that no one's coming to save you. When I first moved to Bombay at 18, I thought I knew what independence was. I'd already lived away from my parents in boarding school for 8 years. I thought I was prepared. But living alone is a different kind of test, because this time there's no schedule, no warden, no one watching if you're okay. I remember my first week, the geyser didn't work, the Wi-Fi was dead, and I couldn't figure out how to refill my gas cylinder. I cried over a half-cooked chapati at midnight because I realized I had no idea how to be an adult. That's how self-reliance starts, not with big achievements, but with tiny disasters you survive. It's learning how to wake yourself up for class without someone yelling your name. It's coming home exhausted and still forcing yourself to cook because no one else is going to do that for you. It's carrying your own heavy-ass groceries up 4 flights of stairs. It's fixing a leaking tap with YouTube tutorials. It's killing your first cockroach, disgusted, but still doing it anyway. And it's not just physical self-reliance, it's emotional too. You learn how to comfort yourself when you're sick and there's no one to bring you tea or coffee. You learn that crying doesn't mean weakness, it means you're processing things and still showing up the next day. Living alone teaches you discipline without pressure and courage without an audience. It's about knowing you will be okay even when there's no one around. Lesson number 2, financial independence is equal to emotional freedom. When your comfort doesn't depend on someone else's wallet, you become unstoppable. I'll be honest, I did not start earning until I was 24, 25, but even when my dad was giving me pocket money, I had to make sure I was budgeting it right because I hated asking for more money from my dad. When I did start earning money gradually through freelancing gigs, my dependency on pocket money started to reduce. And eventually, I realized financial independence isn't about having a lot, it's about having control. When you manage your own money, you realize you can say no without guilt. You can walk away from situations, people, even jobs because your survival doesn't depend on them. And that's emotional freedom, the ability to make choices based on peace, not pressure. And especially in our culture as women, we're raised to think money is something our fathers or husbands handle. So when you earn your own, it's not just income, it's agency. You stop asking for permission, and not in an arrogant way, but in a quiet, grounded way. You buy your own furniture, you pay your own bills, you book your own cabs at 2 a.m. Not that it's always safe to do so, but something in your nervous system changes after that. For me, financial independence wasn't about earning a big salary or a big paycheck. It was about waking up one day and realizing I can take care of myself. And that's what living alone teaches you. That money, when handled wisely, isn't materialism. It's safety, dignity, and choice. And once you start trusting yourself financially, you naturally start trusting all your judgments too, because managing money teaches you decision making in the smallest, most powerful ways. And that's what came next for me, learning how to make choices without second guessing myself. So lesson number 3, decision making. When you start living alone, every decision, what you eat, where you go, who you spend time with, is entirely up to you. No parents, no teacher, no deadlines from someone else. And it sounds like freedom, right? But it was actually really overwhelming, because when you have complete freedom, you also have complete accountability. In the beginning, I made impulsive choices. I said yes to too many things, plans, people, commitments, because I didn't want to miss out on anything. I'd agree to night outs when I was exhausted, sign up for projects I didn't even care about, and eat out when I was running out of pocket money. I was living freely, but not intentionally. And that's when I realized decision making isn't about knowing what's right, it's about learning to pause before you say yes. Eventually, I made a lot of wrong decisions, the kind that sting, but also shape you. When you live alone, there's no one to blame, no friend, no parent. I learned that it's okay to make wrong choices. What matters is learning how to correct them without self-blame. That's where maturity begins, when you can say, yes, I made a mistake, but you know what? I know how to handle it. That's the difference between independence and maturity. Independence says, I'll do it myself. Maturity says, I'll handle whatever happens after that. I remember one turning point, choosing to move to Delhi for my UPSC examinations to prepare for that. And that decision didn't give me the result I expected, but it gave me something better. Proof that I can handle my own risks. And once I started trusting my own choices, I realized I wasn't afraid of being alone anymore. Which brings me to lesson number 4. Solitude teaches emotional resilience. When you first move to a new place where you don't know anyone, you try to keep yourself distracted and busy. At first, I filled it with noise, YouTube, FaceTiming friends, music, doom scrolling, anything that made me feel less alone. But you have to really sit in that discomfort. And that's when I realized loneliness isn't a bad thing. It gives your mind the chance to really know yourself. That was also the phase when I went through one of the worst heartbreaks, the kind that shakes your sense of self. And there was no one to comfort me, no distraction, no noise. I had to learn how to navigate it myself, and I'm so bloody grateful for that. You learn to cry without shame, to make tea for yourself even after a breakdown, to go for a walk because you deserve fresh air and not because someone is telling you to move on. And that is building emotional resilience. Not pretending you're fine, but trusting that you will be fine. That's when you know you've grown, when being alone doesn't feel like absence anymore, it feels like being present. Because honestly, if you can be happy alone, everything else becomes a choice, not a need. And finally, lesson number 5, which is learning to manage a home. When you finally become comfortable with yourself, you naturally start craving structure, stability, and peace. Because you realize chaos doesn't feel exciting anymore. That's what came next for me. Learning that running a home isn't about chores. It's a mirror of how you run your life, how I choose to run my life. No one teaches you how to manage a home. Like your mom doesn't wake up one day and is like, hey, I'm going to tell you how to manage a home, how to juggle work, chores, deadlines, and still stay emotionally present. No one's teaching you that. But once you do learn all of this, it becomes a quiet kind of power. I learned how to budget better because I knew my bills weren't going to pay themselves. I learned time management because I knew my laundry wasn't going to fold itself. And I learned patience because life rarely goes according to schedule. And when you start treating your space like something sacred, you automatically start treating yourself that way too. And to learn all of this is not possible if you don't step out of your comfort home. I used to think growing up meant achieving more. Now I think it just means needing less. You start valuing clean bed sheets over club nights, home-cooked meals over home deliveries, and honest peace over complicated people. You learn to create the kind of environment you don't need to escape from. And that is the real glow up, when your peace becomes your new normal. And there's this line that I read that has stuck with me till today. A woman who can build her own home will never beg to be kept. And that's what I've realized. All these years, I thought I was just learning to live alone or be independent, but I was actually learning how to live well. Building a home taught me structure. Maintaining it taught me consistency, and both of them taught me grace. And that's when I knew I wasn't just living by myself anymore, I was living for myself. And with that, this video ends right here. I hope you take away something meaningful from this video and from my experiences. I really truly believe that living alone shapes you as a human, as a person, that no other class or degree or any other experience can really teach you. So I hope you take away something from this. Let me know in the comments down below if you are someone who's lived alone or plans to live alone, and I will see you guys in my next video.